love addicts are codependent. So my theory is that there are statistically more female love addicts because the way society is structured, we don't really, there's very little validation women get. And they get like way more criticism, they get a lot of blame for things that they weren't their fault. They get the credit for the things they do well and right are just overshadowed, and they are like because there is such a negative bias towards women and their capabilities, that translates into when they are actually doing something that is like a big deal. They actually get criticism, and if someone is doing the exact same thing and he's a man, and this has been proven by research studies over decades and decades, so we know that there is a bias that like people want to hire men more and they want to pay them more because they think they'll work better, even if they're working like they're as productive or your quality of work is better even. There is this perception that they are more confident, they know what they're talking about. So I think that is why women sort of go off more into this idealized world, and of course socialization, as I just talked about. So they are very sort of prone to this fantasy that is a very typical of love addicts. So love addicts, and I think that's why they tie in closely with like codependence. Of course, all love addicts are codependent. And it also ties very closely to BPD. And love addiction is basically like being addicted to wanting to be in love and being in romantic relationships. And people who have this love addiction usually feel really empty, and they feel really incomplete. They feel really like there's a chronic feeling of emptiness and just like longing for love, and just feeling validated and feeling accepted and feeling wanted. So that is really powerful for them, and they struggle with that their whole lives. So they find that the most love they feel they're getting is in a romantic relationship. So they seek out relationship after relationship. And they are codependents because they need something externally to make them feel good inside. So the love addiction, like I experienced for myself, was basically like idealizing, devaluation, living in this fantasy of who the person could be rather than who they are. Becoming like attached to abusive and exploitative people or emotionally unavailable people because of my internal feeling that I have to work for love and that I'm not good enough. So I sought out people who reinforce that for me. And love addicts also tend to feel, of course, that they need someone desperately. They want to attach with that person. They struggle with boundaries and they want to diffuse their boundaries to the point that there are no boundaries left. And this often makes the other person feel suffocated and stifled and causing them to withdraw. So I think being aware of this really helps. Once you know that this is something you struggle with, you can tackle it much more better. Because if you don't know what you're dealing with, then you don't have a chance against it. So that awareness really helps, and working on yourself continuously helps. As soon as I stop working on myself, and I've been a little struggling with that, so everything sort of becomes worse like very quickly, and I return to my baseline feeling of like feeling terrible and feeling empty and feeling like I don't know myself and just like feeling depressed and anxious and just like low energy all the time. So I would suggest people who are love addicts, please work on this thing. Work on understanding yourself, where the love addiction comes from, why it is there, and also like your addiction to other substances or other people or other things that are not healthy for you. So could you like, you can just do this exercise where you divide, like take a page, divide it into columns, and on one side you can have like healthy sort of things that you are addicted to, and then other things that are not so healthy. So for instance, it doesn't have to be an addiction per se, it could just be like something you like to do a lot, but it's not an addiction as well. So it could be like you like being creative, you like helping people, you like volunteering at this kids shelter. So there could be a lot of those things that are actually helpful and healthy, and identifying those, you can separate the ones you need to work on. So that could be like the negative ones could be smoking, could be smoking up, alcoholism. There's like so many, and love addiction is of course one of them. So I think love addicts, of course, because they have these poor and like they don't have boundaries to protect themselves, they are often like up for being exploited by people, and they find people who exploit them because the people at the other end realize that this person's boundaries are so weak that we can easily manipulate them. So because of their love addiction, they become open to manipulation, and that goes down another tangent and another road where their entire lives can become affected. And the first thing that they let go of is self-care, and they sort of overly sacrifice themselves, overcompensate to make the other person feel happy, and they forget who they are. They just become like chameleons, and they change with the relationship and the demands and dynamics that the other person wants. And when I see these love addicts with people who are narcissistic, it's often that like the narcissist, of course, in his or her exploitation and the entire games that they're playing, they convince the other person that you know, of course they're projecting, so they convince the other person that like everything that you are and everything that's wrong is because of you. So like when I was with a narcissist, they actually like kept saying this word, and then later I realized that that's exactly what they are. So they kept saying I'm selfish, that was like a recurring theme, and then they kept saying I'm delusional, and I was just like, I was confused by it, but later I started believing it a little at a time. And then the other thing is that like they often like such people start making you feel guilty for being happy and for being happy without them. So that just makes the love addict's tendencies to leave behind their own things, their own priorities, and focus on the other person. It makes it worse because they feel obligated and they feel compelled, and they feel that they'll lose the love that they care about so much and the person they care about so much. So also like with the one, they think like every person they fall in love with, they fall in love so easily. They can just meet someone, and in a week or in 2 weeks they can feel like a really strong connection to them, and they can like share so much and feel so connected to someone so quickly. So for someone who is in that position, it becomes very difficult to differentiate what reality is, what it's not, because they can sort of get, because of course love, I think, is addictive in itself, and for a love addict it is really addictive. So I have trouble sort of accepting that you know, like mature love is not obsessive, because all love is obsessive because of the chemical reactions it sets off in our body. And like my cat probably loves me, and he reacts really strongly when he hears my voice. And I had the same thing with my narcissist ex-partner. So I feel like there is more to that than we, you know, think about. And I think the way animals love us is like with complete dedication, and that is kind of how a love addict loves. But the realities of the situation are that in the world we live in, it's everyone does have to take care of themselves, and it might not be so healthy to keep obsessing. And if you are obsessing, it might be better to just cut it right there and actually focus on something else, distract yourself, go out to meet someone, or do something productive with your time.